we have some big time statements being made here by different individuals, and I think they're worth paying attention to. I want to start off here with well-known investor Jim Rogers making a statement that people should be worried that here in the coming year or so, there will be a collapse. And I know we've heard this all before, but a lot of the times before that it's been echoed, this comes from mainstream media pundits, and a lot of times this is used as a scare tactic. And the reality is we'll have to sit back and let time tick and see what happens here to see if everything plays out the way that Mr. Rogers is saying. Now, he's saying that Saudi Arabia and Russia have just come together and agreed towards stabilizing the market. Now, what this means is they're going to freeze their markets and try to put it to where it's at, I guess, the summer levels. Now, the experts that watch this constantly, like Jim Rogers, say that they should just let the market fix itself, correct itself. And he goes on to state that right now, because of what Saudi Arabia has done, keeping the price of the oil so low, it has caused the rigs in the United States, in Canada, and other places to have to shut down. Even the exploration has been shut down because they cannot afford to operate. This not being talked about by the mainstream media. Not the nitty-gritty details of why, but Russia and Saudi Arabia seem to have an agreement now to where they're going to freeze outputs. And this is in an attempt to try to rebound things, is what they're saying. But others say it's going to cause problems for other countries. Now, Bahrain is acting as a mouthpiece of Saudi Arabia. And they're trying to come out and talk, basically, in the words of Saudi Arabia, they're out here pushing, saying, look, we're a major producer of oil. And no, Bahrain's not a major producer of oil. They're running out of oil. And believe it or not, Saudi Arabia, as much money as they've accumulated with their oil empire, they're running out of money too. And the thing about this is, and some could say, oh, it's impossible. How could they ever run out of money when they just keep printing the money? Well, that's the problem. The Federal Reserve can just keep printing this money. It has no real value. Do you see that now? Ever since they took away the gold standard and stopped backing our dollar with gold, it's just the paper that it's written on. It's not worth anything more. And what's very interesting here is before we've heard talk of possible economic collapse, the possibility of something happening. Well, this whole thing is staged and rigged, guys. I've shown you over the past few months how the precious metals, gold and silver, was completely rigged. DB Bank got popped, caught red-handed, manipulating the prices. Well, why wasn't all these other people outraged over that? I tell you why. Because they were involved. And that's why the mainstream media barely said anything about it. And now other banks are starting to shudder because they think that DB Bank is going to get pulled into court and start dropping names. And it's in my opinion that before any of the big dogs get drug into court, that they'll bring down the whole thing. They'll keep this thing going as long as they can. There is no chosen date, in my opinion. If they can keep the game going, they'll keep it going. But there's plans put in place that if it starts to fall apart, this is what they'll do. And they could collapse the economy, guys, tomorrow morning. It's in their hands. This is pure manipulation. Pure manipulation. I've shown it time and time again. So this deal here between Saudi Arabia and Russia could affect other countries big time. And what Jim Rogers is saying here, and he ends in saying, you should be worried. This is going to be a serious economic crisis in the next year or so. We're going to have to pay a terrible price for the artificial money coming out of America and other central banks. And see, this is the scheme and the plot all across the globe. They've gone in and put central banks in every country so they can control them. The only places that don't have a Rothschild central bank, and how many other channels will even mention that, is Syria. Places like Syria, where they want to go in and topple the regime, just like they did in Libya to Gaddafi, to install a central bank and take all their wealth, all of everything, their natural resources, the hidden history that's buried in these places, like within Iraq, all the artifacts that they had on the Nephilim and history itself, gone. And I'll also probably try to reach out to Trade Genius to get him back on for an update on what things are looking like here in the markets, as he had said to pay attention to a few different things in terms of wheat and sugar and all that. Get him back on the show to chime in to give us some updates on where everything's sitting and what he's seeing at this point. But for those that just don't want to believe it, and maybe some have to hear it from somebody else's mouth, even Trump states that the U.S. has a false economy. It has an artificial stock market. That's right, fake as can be. Artificial stock market. This is coming out of the mouth of Donald Trump. He is saying it. This is going right along the lines of what Jim Rogers is saying here. That this whole thing is fake, it's staged, it's rigged, and I can't help but say it, we've been screaming this for years. Where's all the people out there that had stated that it's not controlled, that it's not manipulated, that we didn't know what we're talking about, that there's no way it's rigged? I hope people are waking up, because it is very, all aspects of the game. And this is pretty big. When you have people that are running for president of the United States sitting here telling the whole country, I almost think it's a test to see just how many people are listening, how many are awake, how many are truly tuned in to what's happening and going on. Someone comes out and says, it's an artificial stock market. We've got problems, guys. But it's the truth. So get to know it. We say all the time, you better have a plan. Because when you have this knowledge and you know how rigged the game is, you know that they could take it down at any given day, any given time, any week. And they'll be prepared. They're all prepared for when that day comes. And there's a reason why the leadership of other countries is telling its people to get ready, to stockpile up on food, water, things like that. But when it comes to this country, if you try to do that, they'll come after you and punish you, it deem you a conspiracy theorist, a prepper, things of that nature. Put you on this list. Doing the opposite of what other countries are doing. But if any country was to fall and affect the rest of the globe, it would be the United States. It would be that petrodollar. And what's also interesting here, with the knowledge that all these people that call themselves the elites have here with the game and how it's being propped up, Mr. Rogers here states that if you're wise, you would buy the ruble. He says, buy rubles. I own the ruble. Full disclosure right now. The ruble has hit rock bottom. Couldn't go any lower. As far as the sanctions and everything that's happened with it, is what he's stating. And it's took the dent of all dents that they're going to throw at it. It's going to begin to rebound. And as soon as this Chinese currency goes into play this month, within this month, fully, that's going to increase the ruble. It's going to strengthen it. Just because of the ties and the backing that China and Russia have with one another. And I kind of see as those kind of grow, and especially if the dollar collapses, petrodollar goes down, you're going to see the ruble and the Chinese currency take off. Now, I've said this before. It will be a short-lived jackpot, so to speak, when everyone's running to their money and their money becomes dominant and it's worth more and they can get more with it. It will only last for so long, because if the United States and the dollar falls, every other country, every other person across the globe that has their bank account filled with U.S. dollars, from $1 to millions, billions, even if it's in offshore accounts and everything and all this other good stuff, it doesn't matter. It will then be worth nothing. And when that happens, and these other currencies inflate and get all the power, it's going to be short-lived because these other countries are going to start to collapse. And where is China and Russia then going to get their goods and produce if all the other countries of the world are collapsing? They won't be able to. It will be chaos. And to me, that sets the stage for what they've been wanting for the longest time with their new world order. There's only one way to install this one world system globally. You would have to have every system come crashing down. So are we that piece of the Jenga puzzle, holding it up that once removed, it all comes crashing down? I do believe we are. With the petrodollar anyway, the American dollar, how they're pushing it globally as being the main currency. When that stops, obviously it will affect the entire globe. But this is why we talk about investing in things like wheat, sugars, other foods, water, medicine, to make sure that you have these things on deck. Because truly, if this is going to come at some point, say you expect to live the next 20, 30 years, do you have kids in this world? Do you care about them? Okay, this is a world they're going to be living in. You've got to educate them on where this is going, where we are heading, why it is the way it is. Who are the puppet masters pulling the strings? Let them know this whole thing's rigged, the realities of it. Don't let them live in a fairy tale. Because it's going to happen. And all I could say is all I ever say is to have a plan. You plan for earthquakes, tsunamis, a lights out situation, all this other stuff. You need to have a plan in case it all does come crashing down. What that means, first and foremost, is have a place to meet with your friends and family. It doesn't have to involve any conspiracy talk. Why don't you start there? Do you even have that? What happens when the phone and the computers are down and none of us can communicate? You need to have one spot where you and your family knows to go to. Just a simple move like that can get everybody at the right place when needed without confusion and spending days trying to find other people and getting lost in the chaos. I truly feel that 2016 into 2017 is a year of transition and change. I've always felt that way. Go back and watch my videos for years. This window in time has always stood out to me. And here we are in this country on the cusp of an election, everything else going on. And it just seems ripe for another huge false flag event. It seems like too many people are waking up, and it's almost like they need a grand event on the scale of 9/11 to whip the masses back into a sleeping mode, or to hit them with this trance as they use their occult magic en masse on the people on a daily basis. Something else people need to see and realize is very real. So I'll say it one last time. Have a plan out there in terms of this economy. Don't think that a bank account full of US dollars is going to save the day, because you're not even going to be able to burn it to get warmth. You better invest in the materials you need, especially for a barter system. For real. What's some things people are going to need out there when they have nothing and they've had nothing for days and weeks? Soap, razors. What about women out there that need women's supplies on a monthly basis? You ever think about that? Those things that are going to be needed. You better plan for 6 months at least, in my book. At least. I'll continue to talk about this Friday. Underground World News, Dabu77, 8 p.m. Eastern. Maybe going live before then with some other Underground World News live streams. But this is important in terms of what's happening here. And when other people are saying, it's time to be worried, guys that have been watching the game forever and have never made a statement like this. It's time to pay attention, and especially when you have individuals running for the presidency of the United States of America that's telling you that your economy is false and that the stock market is artificial. The writing's on the wall. The crash is imminent. It's going to happen. And really, if you have a plan, then you should rest good at night knowing that you have that plan versus not having one. It's the most important thing out there. I'll leave links, and like I said, I'll continue to update on this. Also, make sure to check out our recent sponsor, the Essential Drug Store. Chose to go with these guys specifically because they offer an avenue for people to be able to get supplies in bulk legally from a licensed pharmacist. And this is for all the people out there that need heart medication, the diabetics that are going to need insulin if it hits the fan. And these are things to think about. It's what we were thinking about, and we got the ball rolling here with this. So it's an avenue there in case anyone needs to utilize it. You can also save 10% since they are our sponsor by mentioning me. I'll leave links for all this in the description box. Until next time, this has been W7. Eyes open.